Hi everyone, this is Dragon GGY. This is the operator Hindsight for Civilight Eterna, the welfare 6-star operator you get from episode 14. Let's get into it. Civilight Eterna is a 6-star bard in the supporter class. Trait of the Archetype, does not attack, but continuously restores the HP of all allies within range at 10% of attack per second. They're not affected by inspiration buffs. First of all, they don't attack. The 1.3 second attack interval is only evident when copied by muses. Their signature function 1 is that their passive HP recovery, which is based on their attack stat. It's effective on enmity and summons, that's how passive healing works. And it does heal themselves and can stack with other bards as well. Their signature 2 is Inspiration. This is a special type of stats buff that is applied after multipliers. So if you use the Holohei example again from last episode, she'll first receive attack multiplier, then the flat number increase from Inspiration before entering Scaling and others. It's only fair this way. Bards are not affected by any inspiration because they are the source of that buff. You can't get a stat buff from a buff that's dependent on your own stat. That's a loophole. But for that matter, they have what's called an amplify and propagate nature. Imagine you're in IS and you get stat buff from relics that are effective on everyone. Bard would benefit from that buff, double it and give it to the next person, or specifically everyone else in the range via inspiration. You get it. One mechanic you need to know though is that when multiple inspirations of the same stats are present, only the one with the strongest effect is applied, and it's not based on the final flat number, but on who's got the highest percentage number. So for example, if you have a 80% attack inspiration that gives you 401 attack versus a 90% that will give you 400, the game will make the 401 effective because it's a 90%. Now let's go over the talents. Talent 1. 3 particles orbit Civilight Eterna at all times. When the particle collides with an operator, it disappears and increases Civilight Eterna's trait effect, in other words the passive healing, on that operator to 1.5 times for 6 seconds. The particle also responds after 6 seconds. The particles spin anti-clockwise at 30 degrees per second or 12 seconds per cycle with a 1.15 tile radius. They are evenly distributed on the orbit, meaning that they are 120 degrees from one another and have a 0.4 tile radius size. They do only collide with operators, not on summons, and from the diagram on the right now, you can get that they can only hit operators that are deployed in the surrounding 8 tiles of her, and 6 second effect and 6 second respawn means that 3 particles can only affect 3 operators as most at the same time. So the mechanic can be tricky, but the concept is easy. She provides more passive healing to operators close by. Now, there are a lot of maths and simulations involved when considering the coverage of that increased healing effect on each operator, and it's affected by whether they are in a closer adjacent 4 or the corner 4, when are they deployed, and how many operators are currently actually in that range. So for simplicity, in this video, I'm gonna just put the HPS of when an operator is always under that effect, which is the highest you can get. The passive healing is 60 HPS with particles or 40 without. This talent is the core of all her functions and all her skills revolve around this mechanic. Talent 2, when deployed, all ally units take 10% less damage, 15% at potential 5 from Sarkaz enemies. It stacks with other damage reductions or sanctuary multiplicatively. For example, Mudrock on stage takes 30% less from Sarkaz enemies. With Civilight Eterna, that's 15% more or less on top. If Mudrock's blocking with her module level 1, that's another 15% less. And throw in another 10% sanctuary, that's a total of 54.5% damage reduction, which means taking only 45.5% damage. Overall, that's a good addition to her support, given that Sarkaz is the biggest subset of all enemy types. But honestly, even with IS-5 being Sarkaz themed and featuring a ton of Sarkaz, including all of the bosses, she isn't that impactful in it. That's mostly because the hope supply isn't that high, so we don't really draft a 6-star just for an effect that's also provided by a relic. Next, let's go over her module that's coming out in about 5 months with the Siege Altar event. Trade update: when there are 2 or more operators in range, herself not included, attack plus 8% for herself, and is not affected by skills. Upgrades goes to her talent 1. The healing scale from particles is increased from 1.5 to 1.6 times and immediately heals 30% of attack to the operator when the collision happens. For the base, having 2 operators in range is not a big ask for Bard. It gives her higher HPS and skill damage and buff, specifically skill 2. This attack increase will not be affected by skill effects that say something along the lines of trait effect increases to something something. For upgrades, the scale increase and actual burst heal from particles further increases the expected healing you get by being in the surrounding A tiles. However, the heal from particles is actually active healing. It will still collide with enmity units, but they will be healed with 0 HP. That aside, it's a great improvement to your healing and protection with skill 1 and skill 3, and it's very noticeable. On the defensive end, it increases skill 1 HPS by about 34% and skill 3 HPS by about 27.3%. Offensive-wise, her skill 2 damage is increased by about 15.3%. So overall, it's a great improvement to her support function, specifically the healing part and her skill 3. The improvement to skill 2, however, is rather limited, so considering that most players, when they want to bring her to a stage, do tend to use skill 2 more, this module is optional. Whether or not to go for it depends on how often you use her, but I do have to point out that base stats are very important to bards due to that amplify and propagate nature. Overall, if you are using her quite frequently, this is definitely a very welcomed upgrade. For skills, my recommendation is skill 2 over skill 3 over skill 1. Skill 2 is her only offensive skill, packing true damage, single target bind during skill, and attack boost via inspiration. Skill 3 is a very powerful multi-target healing and protecting skill. Its potential is immense, but lacks the actual application in-game where it's irreplaceable as a sustained skill. Finally, skill 1 is just healing and healing alone. It's comparable with multi-target medics, but honestly, I don't think you should bother. Skill 1 trait effect increases to 35%, particle regeneration speed is doubled, so now they respawn after 3 seconds instead of 6. This is a 0/65 warm-up skill with unlimited duration. With module, the highest HPS you can get by being in the A tiles is 281, and it gets less the more units there are. Now, if I were to put it straight, this skill is spending 65 seconds doing basically nothing just to cosplay a multi-target medic. No other functions are involved, it's just healing. And you gain particularly less if you're in the furthest 4 tiles where particles don't collide. It does have bright spots like healing enmity with a 258 HPS since they don't get the healing from particles with modules, and particles respawning after just 3 seconds means that they provide the effect and heal more efficiently, affecting up to 6 units in those 8 tiles. But still not as straightforward as using an actual healer. Here are some stats comparison. 281 may seem pretty solid at the first glance, but it's lower in practice and takes 65 seconds to build up and has a smaller range compared to multi-target medics. the Altar skill 2 warms up at 56 seconds. More importantly, it has attack and defense boost as key buffs. Skill 1 feels pale in comparison, and I'd not recommend it. Skill 2 particle limit plus 3 and immediately gains 6 particles. Particle orbit radius plus 0.85 into 2.0, and all allies in attack range gain attack inspiration equal to 100% of Civilight Eterna's attack. Particles no longer collide with operators, but instead deal 275% of attack as true damage when they collide with enemies, binding them for 3.5 seconds. This is a 20/35 to 35 second skill. The skill deals about 37k true damage and gives about 460 attack with inspiration. I'm gonna briefly go over its mechanics when starting, what you visually see is 3 more particles added to the orbit immediately. They turn red and speed up to about 50 degrees per second. In 3 seconds, their orbiting radius will go up linearly from 1.15 to 2.0. When the skill finishes, however, instead of returning to its previous speed of 30 degrees per second, the particles will further accelerate to about 57 degrees per second off skill. That's not written anywhere in the kit, and I have no idea why that's the case. But anyhow, it does increase the coverage of particle effects on operators off skill because they catch up to them much faster. Other than that, the orbiting radius will revert from 2.0 back to 1.15 linearly in 3 seconds. So when an enemy is caught by a particle on the stable collision orbit, demonstrated on the right, without others getting in the way to consume those particles, subsequent particles with the speed they move will always respawn a bit behind the target and collide with it again before the bind timer runs out, making a single target bind possible for a whole 32-ish seconds. But as you can see, the area isn't very wide, which is good and bad at the same time. It reduces interference by other random enemies that walks in, but it also means that you have to time the skill or manipulate the target to catch them in those tiles. Barring the very corners, she also can catch enemies around her. Here's a complete animation to help you visualize the whole process. When the skill starts, get 3 more particles, they immediately move faster and transition to a bigger radius in 3 seconds. Once they're stable, if there's only one target, then particles can lock them in place until the skill ends. After skill ends, return to the normal orbit in 3 seconds, but particles maintain a faster speed and will switch between that and the speed in skill afterwards. Do note that this perma-bind in skill is also possible at skill level 7, despite the bind time being only 3 seconds. So what are the applications? It's kinda a bit of everything. Number 1, the most promising one, this 30-second plus stalling. It can then chain with other skills to stall an enemy in one place forever, most conveniently with Shield Skill 3. It does require some block or bind to serve as a buffer between transition, so for most players, it isn't the most practical stuff to pull off. It does have a surprising interaction with the IS relic Hands of Purification. Her bind action on the skill is tied to any damage she deals during skill. Therefore, the relic renders her single target crowd control into AoE, which is interesting. Number 3, the Attack Inspiration. It's mostly a downgrade from Scotty Alter Skill 3 with lower stat and less flexible range, but it is slightly longer in duration, so it fits some longer duration skill. Remember that Inspiration buff is better on operator with a low inherent base stat or attack multiplier, like the Mega Core Casters or Marksman. A 400 flat buff is more noticeable on someone with 800-ish versus someone with 3000-ish. And finally, it isn't much, but it is true damage. When her enemy can't catch her, she can output that damage pretty safely, and everything she offers is not affected by her own status effect, which is also nice. Finally, we have skill 3, attack range expands and trait effect increases to 90%. Particles no longer disappear, and all allies in attack range gain max HP inspiration equal to 100% of her own HP. Redistribute HP of all allies in attack range every 2 seconds. This is a 35/55 skill with 30-second duration. Range and stats are shown here. The HPS in surrounding 8 tiles goes up to 686 max and 414 when further away. Everyone also get a solid 2.2k max HP increase. So let's go over the mechanics. First, the HP redistribution is based on percentage. So it takes the sum of current HP of everyone in range divided by the sum of their max HP to get a percentage. Then based on that, redistribute HP to each of them so that everyone would be at that level. This applies to all units in range, including summons. In other words, summons will be able to supply HP to operators. That's very promising. It also provides massive passive healing. If you take the average of HPS closer, and when it's further, it's clearly above Scotty Alter Skill 1. That HPS also fluctuates less because particles will always be active and everyone in A tiles can benefit from it consistently. Yes, part of that is from module upgrades and will turn a bit lower for enmity and summons, but overall, the passive healing is effective to all units in range as well. Also, when the skill is activated, a redistribution immediately happens so that it can provide an instant heal to units who are extremely low on HP. So, why is there a high potential to this skill? There are several key designs to it. First, redistributing HP is a way of spreading the bonus of particles. What the units in A tiles get is split between them and those further away. So when we say 27% increase with module, it's actually more than what the number entails. Next is the design of sharing a HP pool while also taking advantage of the fact that bards heal everyone in range no matter how many there are. So redistributing HP is basically everyone sharing a HP pool, as long as everyone involved does not die before a redistribution happens, to ensure that the skill gives everyone in range a max HP increase equal to the full HP of Civilight Eterna herself. It's not a percentage buff, so for low HP squishies, like most of the range units, it's more than double of what they had. That's why the max HP attribute from module is, for once, very impactful. With this mechanic, the key difference between healing individual HP pools and a shared HP pool comes to play. Suppose you are a multi-target medic with 100 HPS. When you heal 3 units, you're giving each of them 100 HPS. Even when the other 2 aren't hurt, you just couldn't heal the one taking damage with 3 times 100 HPS. It doesn't work that way. However, with a shared HP pool, every time after the redistribution, everyone is hurt. And Civilight Eterna and any other passive healing, multi-target healing is able to heal all of them, which is the number of units in range times individual HPS. So if there's only one unit taking damage, she's essentially putting the entirety of her healing potential to everyone in range to one target. And that's HPS beyond any standard healing. By this point, I think many will be interested in knowing how it compares with Skadi Auto Skill 1, so here's a summary. First, for themselves, Skadi has 4.6k HP with the skill, but will take half of every damage to every unit in range. For Civilight Eterna, her max HP is unchanged because she does not benefit from Inspiration, but if there are global max HP buffs, she can benefit from it and further spread them to others via Inspiration. For the units they protect, Skadi takes away half of any damage, so they only take half of it. For Civilight Eterna, she does it by giving everyone her max HP amount, increasing the one-hit threshold. For passive healing, it's pretty much a complete win for Civilight Eterna. She splits those healing evenly and basically heal proportionally more the more units there are in range, while Skadi is healing each individual HP pool. For Skadi, she has the Seaborn to tether units in the distance, while Civilight Eterna has a bigger range to include more health packs and will redistribute HP. Skadi's advantage is basically what she can do with her Seaborn. She can be outfit so that she doesn't take things like AoE or splash damage that can get herself killed. But other than that, without other external help, Civilight Eterna is basically one step above her ability to keep everyone up. She's good at protecting low HP units from burst damage, where even when incoming damage is halved, they may still end up dying due to having a low one-hit threshold. She's notably stronger when using everyone's HP reserved to sustain just one unit taking damage. Skadi has a very important drawback, being that if multiple units are taking damage at the same time, she has to take a lot of shared damage altogether, which can lead to herself dying first and subsequently all others. But for Civilight Eterna, as long as she doesn't take direct aggro, everyone, including herself, should be fine. And even when she doesn't make it from a burst AoE damage due to not getting her own inspiration, as long as it helps others to tank the critical damage, she can sacrifice herself so that everyone else leaves. For applications, it can relate with other burst healing skills like Shu Skill 3, again, AR Auto Skill 3, Telopsis Skill 2 for higher coverage. It's effective in pulling off things like the Certa ICU. It does have some synergies that stem from different interactions. For example, since summons contribute to the HP pool, you can take advantage of them to keep everyone alive, especially when there are multiple of them, or when they don't take up deployment slots like Wizardel skill 3, Muse's skill 3, or Link skill 3. It works with max HP buffs like Aya Alter Talent 2, Amiya Medic Talent 2, again, Amplify, and Propagate. And finally, since it also consistently makes everyone not full HP, you can add in Zarya skill 3 with a module so that mass SP charging is also possible. But this combo gives too much healing. You'll also need others to consistently lose HP or take damage. It's niche for sure, but interesting to try. Overall, this skill, despite all its potential and visually convincing impact, has not found many applications, much like Skadi Alter Skill 1 and Silence Alter Skill 3. On one hand, you have some busted burst healing skills like Shu Skill 3 and Aya Alter Skill 3, who also have important impact off skill. On the other hand, the need for such protection is questionable currently in the game. There are just too many workarounds you can do to avoid taking those damage, or they are just not significant enough that this skill seems like a massive overkill. At the end of the day, players tend to like consistent healing more than these burst survival skills. It's natural, not everyone wants to experience some roller coaster HP bars all the time. To summarize, Civilight Eterna is a 6-star bard that offers mostly defensive support with a slight touch of offensive selection. She's mostly focused on providing multi-target passive healing, which includes Enmity and Summons. You do have her skill 2, which gives a mix of true damage, single target bind, and attack inspiration. Her skill 3 has a powerful team protection mechanic that has the potential to keep everyone alive against some of the most extreme damage that the game can offer. I've gotta be honest, she hasn't seen a lot of use since her release. Her skill 2 is most relevant for daily, and you can pair it with operators who have matching mechanics and cycles. One key candidate being Golden Glow skill 3. Feel free to leave more partners that you find in the comments. Her most notable presence in IS is when she has the Hand of Purification. Unfortunately, it's only in IS3 and IS4, they got rid of it in IS5. Other than that, she isn't a priority pick anywhere in IS, unfortunately. She's also in one of the 3 ops teams to clear the final stage of a future game mode called Vector Breakthrough among 9 other solutions using skill 2. Linked will be in the description. I'll briefly talk about the ratings. 3 for daily. Her skill 2 buff is passable, but have to pick its candidate due to cycling. The single target bind isn't that easy to use when it's a mob wave environment most of the time. Skill 1 and 3 is straight up replaceable by healers, and skill 2 is far from what Skadi Alter skill 2 offers. I'd rather grab a better damage dealer. And then we have 5 in advanced. Her skill 2 bind again is her biggest shot at hardcore content and has seen applications like I mentioned. It's not affected by attack speed and her direction. As long as her target has a shorter reach than her, she's a very good solution. For the team survival offered by skill 3, however, it's still a question mark. One big problem with it is that as a flip side of that amplify and propagate, the impact of her skill 3 is also cut short multiple times when facing max HP or defense debuffs. Those accumulated can be detrimental to its effectiveness. As for numbers, their cycle and startup is obviously not the best, which is very common in Welfare 6 starts, so that's also a minus for the CC and healing coverage. So, should you build her? I think she has some really interesting mechanics to play with, like the massive passive healing and single target bind, which has applications already. But most of what she offers versus what's needed in the game right now, she's also easily replaceable in most aspects. Gameplay-wise, she's mostly a budget option when you don't have Skadi Alter skill 3 for attack buff, and we ante up on her skill 2 bind because she's able to pull it off on her complete ult. Even Shu may need someone to sow the ground for her, so there's definitely potential there. But then, if you don't care about those flawless CC chains, it really doesn't matter. Many times, you may find a healer more straightforward. For schedule and meta, There really isn't much to talk about. She's free after all, and by the standard of welfare 6 stars nowadays, she's on the brighter side of the spectrum. But I'd only recommend if you're rich on resources and don't have better priorities. Her base skill is also just mid, if that's part of your consideration. That's gonna be it for this episode. Yes, I don't have an impact rating comparison for welfares coming up because I simply don't have the time to cook that part at all. If you're here for Crown Slayer impact, my initial take is 1 and 1. That's it. There are so much more to finish up. I have to go over all the calculation for modules as well. This video has taken me more time than I expected since her kit is indeed interesting to talk about. Anyway, thank you for watching until the end. See you in the next one. Bye bye.